Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to cover this because, well, you're probably not going to hear about it from almost anyone else, so I might as well do it. Most supposed left-wing YouTubers on the platform are not really left-wing at all. They are just subtle partisans for American empire, and so I'm sure they would celebrate the things that I'm talking about here, which is the US essentially censoring whatever opposition media that it pleases off of the most used platforms on the internet. So yeah, their claim to being anything resembling left is spurious at best. But anyway, so a couple of days ago, the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken gave a press conference where he claimed that a bunch of media outlets that the US State Department and the US executive branch finds inconvenient for their geopolitical interests are actually evil Russian propaganda that are evilly trying to influence perceptions all around the world and blah, blah, blah. You get the gist. This is, of course, incredibly ironic because the US's number one thing is interfering in other countries' democracies, both very directly. For example, this past week, as I talked about on my channel, it was revealed that the US literally had an FBI agent as a presidential candidate in Ecuador, and that the country's attorney general is their asset. On top of that, the US themselves has state media outlets that they operate all over the world, essentially disseminating their own ridiculous propaganda. For example, Radio Free Asia and Voice of America. So for them to denounce another country for supposedly having state media that is disseminating propaganda around the world or whatever is obviously a total fucking joke. Their problem with it is that this other country's state media is essentially contradicting their own geopolitical line, nothing more or nothing less. But I wanted to talk about this because it's going very far here. So, as you know, basically the entire internet these days is just a couple of social media platforms. It's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and a couple more that I'm sure I'm just forgetting to list. And while these networks are almost all, aside from TikTok, technically American-owned, they are also multinational companies that have branches in many other countries of the world as they are required to by law to operate there. And pretty much everyone all over the world is forced to use them if they want to connect with anyone else or to have what they are saying disseminated in any way, shape, or form. And so what has happened is that after the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who is a war criminal, by the way, basically held a press conference where he accused a bunch of online media outlets of being Russian state-funded, a number of these platforms, such as Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, immediately took to just unilaterally deciding to ban worldwide, not just in the US, not just blocking them in the US, but worldwide, every single outlet that he named. One of which was an outlet called Red, which is known for essentially reporting on things that are very inconvenient for the American geopolitical narrative, such as on the genocide in Gaza, for example. Now, whether or not this Red outlet is funded by Russia is up in the air. Their predecessor was funded by the Russian state for sure, but this is allegedly, so they say, a new continuation of that, which broke off from Redfish, which was the previous iteration, because they disagreed with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, basically, from what I understand it. Are they still being funded by Russia, or are they being funded independently? I don't know, it's up in the air, but either way, it really doesn't matter, does it? Governments fund media outlets all over the world. It's a completely normal practice. The US, as I just said, does it, and not just with their own media outlets. They also have initiatives like the NED, through which they basically fund oppositional media outlets anywhere in the world when they think that it is amenable to their interests. So even if these guys are receiving money from Russia, then, okay, so what? Who cares? By that same standard, then there's like hundreds upon hundreds of different media outlets all over the world who should be shut down immediately for receiving money from you guys. Obviously, their problem here is that these guys are reporting on things that the US doesn't want them to be reporting on. So the US executive branch just unilaterally held a press conference and named a bunch of media outlets who they wanted censored, and the social media platforms duly obliged. And this is very significant because what we're talking about here is the US government, one government in the entire world, just being able to unilaterally decide that any YouTube channel, any Facebook page, any Instagram page, any Twitter account that they want gone, that they find inconvenient for their narrative, should be gone. And those platforms are going to oblige. It's not even like these people were convicted of anything in an actual court of law or anything, which, while that would still be very questionable because, the US courts are not exactly unbiased when it comes to their decisions upon US geopolitical affairs. But, that would at least be some sort of sensible basis for blocking their channels. But no, it's not even that. The US executive branch just unilaterally declared that these media outlets should be banned, and they were banned. As this post from Red says, they were banned from Meta platforms being Facebook, Instagram, etc., and they were banned from YouTube. Not just blocked in the US, which would make more sense given that these are multinational companies, not just blocked in the US, deleted entirely. What this means is that if you talk about things that are inconvenient for the US and they take notice of you, you run the risk of just being unilaterally deleted off basically the entire usable internet, the parts of the internet people use these days, just because they say so. Nothing else. And if this is not something that scares you, it can really only be because you are a partisan for US empire and you agree with this idea that anything that is inconvenient for them should be just yeeted off the internet. That any narratives contrary to the US imperialist narrative should not even be allowed to be expressed. Red, by the way, is not even a US-based company. Red is based in Germany. Even on a judicial level, the US has no basis to declare them like a foreign agent or whatever, because they're not in the US, they're in Germany. And on that point, that would be ludicrous for them to do anyway, because the US constantly talks about how laws in other countries that regulate the foreign funding of media agencies, for example, there was a recent attempt to pass such a law in Georgia, they always call those anti-democratic, like, oh no, they're trying to stop us from funding media agencies in Georgia. That's anti-democratic. It's only democracy when we're allowed to spread our propaganda there freely without them requiring any sort of disclosure of the fact that we're paying them to do so. And then when a company in Germany is allegedly, with no proof, accused of receiving money from Russia, they just say some magic words in a press conference and get it shut down at their own whim. It's absolutely ridiculous, and the fact that relatively few people are even talking about this right now on YouTube is a massive indictment of them and their politics, and it should make you incredibly suspicious of them if you still watch any of them. Your very ability to speak out against US imperialism is at risk. Your very ability to denounce atrocities like the US-backed genocide currently ongoing in Gaza is at risk. And if that doesn't fucking terrify you, it's because you are on the same side as the US government that is carrying out that genocide and other atrocities worldwide every single day.